Hello, it's Cersei here. I decided to uh, finish up this Let's Play with a bit of an epilogue to discuss my thoughts on the themes of the game. Usually not something I end up doing, but for this one I felt it was, worth going into in detail, um, especially since there's often not a lot of room to talk about that during the game itself. I'm reacting to stuff that's on the screen. Because I think that this game really resonates with me a lot. It resonates with me as a transgender woman, even though it never really makes it explicit that the Glitch Witch is trans. I would guess that she is, based on what we see about her. But let's take a step back for a moment and talk about the major themes that I see within the game. So obviously the thematic stuff around the game is all kind of centered on the Glitch Witch. Everyone you meet has some relation to her. And we kind of spend the game seeing her through other people's eyes, and I think this is an important aspect of how we see the game. Is we see the Glitch Witch has this really impressive reputation. Like, people kind of mythologize her as this legendary hacker, and everyone kind of has their own individual views, and it's clear that each character kind of sees her through a particular lens based on their ideological beliefs. The owls kind of see her her anonymity as a threat, and you've got the spammers see her as a lone person who's going it on her own and can't manage without other people, a group of people working with her. You've got I forgot the squid character's name, but like this character who has really strong opinions about certain hardware and software, to the point that he feels betrayed by her kind of changing operating systems. And so we kind of see how there's this myth being kind of shaped around the Glitch Witch that allows each character to kind of see her as their perfect ideological foil. And to a degree, that there's kind of just reacting to what her beliefs are and what she thinks and how her opinions differ from theirs. But there's also kind of just this idea of what they imagine she stands for. And this is really contrasted by the notes we see on her computer, the things that she leaves behind for us to read. And this is kind of where we see her speak for herself in her own voice. And we see kind of a very different picture painted of what kind of person she is based on her own words. And there's, I think, kind of a picture of someone kind of struggling to understand who they are. A very intelligent person who kind of still feels like they're kind of lost, kind of still figuring things out and not really understanding other people a lot, and really kind of painting a picture of a very lonely person kind of struggling to make connections. And there's a lot of stuff about identity, about I just rewatched the last episode, and there's the bit, the potions bit. This one makes you big, this one makes you small, this one makes you someone else, and this one makes you who you truly are. So there's clearly a lot of investment in this idea of identity that I think is very easy for trans people to identify with, of kind of a certain kind of searching for what your true self is that is maybe not something that other people don't go through. It isn't not that, but it's something that's kind of felt a lot more acutely, I think, by people who don't necessarily feel like they fit into kind of the boxes presented to us, by traditional ideas of gender. There's probably other kinds of people who, end up going through that search of not fitting in, but it definitely has a strong feeling of, especially with the game leaning very heavily into kind of a feminine aesthetic. There's a lot of pink, there's a lot of color, there's a lot of, I guess, cuteness. The game has been described as cyberpink, which I like a lot. But so we kind of see these two competing pictures of the Glitch Witch, this mythologized image of her, and the version of her that we see, kind of the real person behind this persona that's been built up. And there's, I guess, especially when you read the letters to her former friends, and you can see that she really does look for things to admire in other people, and largely she really just seems to kind of want to be friends with people, but it ends up with these ideological clashes each time. We can see, by what the characters tell us. You have the ape one who's really, really obsessed with openness and like open source, and that's an interesting case because, she talks about in her letter, like, I wish I could be as open as you, and I think, that's a feeling that's easy to have kind of when you have an identity that's pushed to the margins, of feeling like, wishing that you didn't have to kind of shield yourself behind these layers of protection that kind of keep you safe from being harmed. And I think that definitely is another thing that really resonates. With the Squid character, you have the clash between this idea of particular technologies being kind of ideologically connected and being obsessed with like using this particular hardware, and you have Gecko, who of course is all about money and really just can't seem to see past that, or see why the Glitch Witch would kind of consciously limit herself when she can make as much money as she wants. And then you have I forgot the chicken's name, I mean, he's just an out-and-out asshole, really. And I kind of wonder what the timeline is on that, because, you know, the whole thing about him scrambling an AI of hers, that's like not only is, like, if you consider these to be sentient, like outright murder, which, you know, the game presents Chewie to us as a sentient being, so yeah, that's pretty much what the game seems to be presenting to us here, is the idea that he's a literal, you know, murderer. Although it must be said, a murderer who would never be considered as such, because he murdered someone who legally wouldn't be considered a person, which, whew, boy, talk about resonating themes right there. But, like, even besides that, there's really kind of a deep violation of trust, and I think that really cuts to their ideological conflict, even, you know, aside from what he did, is just that he doesn't even acknowledge the idea of trust or vulnerability as something that exists in an online space. And so I'm rambling a little bit, but, like, you can see that each of these characters kind of characterizes Beglitched in terms of this ideological conflict, you know, in terms of how they can't accept that, you know, she believes something different from them, and, you know, so you can kind of see, like, you kind of pick up the pieces over time of what happened, why she disappeared, and you can kind of see, like, how she says, like, everything just kind of started spinning out of control, just like those moments in your life where everything seems to be going wrong at once, and you kind of get the idea that each of these stages that you worked through, each of these different challenges that you've confronted, are things that kind of all happened close to the same time. You know, her friends leaving her networks getting attacked by people, you know, getting hunted down by this, you know, the security dog, getting hounded for questions by Chewie, it must be said. And, like, you can see that there's kind of this thing of, like, she's this really awesome person who could probably handle each of these things individually, but is really just kind of overwhelmed by, you know, people treating her like an idea, less than, you know, a person. The owls one really sticks with me because, you know, it's the idea of privacy is something that, you know, it's easy to have strong feelings about, and that's something that I have strong feelings about. And they kind of regard her as, like, oh, this, you know, she's a danger, like, she's this dangerous power, and kind of engaging with her like that, and, you know, not as you know, a person who deserves to be, you know, deserves to have privacy. And, you know, they claim that she's spying on everyone else, and, you know, is it possible to be hypocritical in the face of trying to protect yourself? Maybe. I think it's possible that it hints at that, or it's possible that they're misrepresenting things. Like, we don't really get her side of that, but, you know, I guess there's a sense of, like, you know, that she probably more likely just kind of tries to keep tabs on people. Like, the Beglitched doesn't strike me as a character who would kind of try and dig into people's real life identities, I think. But that's kind of a side thing. We don't really get to hear the full story on that. But then we get to kind of this final section here, and that's, I think the theme's relevant here. This is why I kind of chose this screen to sit on while I went into this, is like, you can see that there's kind of a conscious pushing away, pushing you out of this system. Everything kind of tries to push you away, trying to actively mislead you. You have error messages that you have to actively ignore. Like, it's using the system itself. The UI is kind of used to misdirect you away from her. And I think, you know, it's an easy thing to kind of understand, you know, dealing with anxiety, dealing with self-hatred, kind of feeling the need to push other people away because you feel like, you know, you feel like you've messed up, and you know, that you, this is hard to articulate, just kind of, I guess, pushing people away to keep yourself safe from the pain of having caused problems. You know, kind of blaming yourself and punishing yourself for that. And I feel like there's a lot of that here. You know, there's messages like, it's just, how did everything go wrong? Cannot contact Colonel, cannot contact anyone. The problem might be me. Sorry. Yeah, this kind of touches a nerve for me. But yeah, you kind of, the game spends the whole, you know, arc of its story placing this moment in context, showing, you know, you kind of have this mystery that you're building a picture of why she left, why she kind of hid away, and that gives you the context to show how she's feeling, you know, the feelings that motivated that, rather than just the external cause. You know, just a feeling of losing control, a feeling like you're screwing up, and feeling like, you know, there's just no way out of this, you know. She lost her friends. She tried to make friends, and her, you know, her artificial friends are demanding. You know, there's no one in the game really mentions anything about her feelings on this, you know. The Zynga, the dog, says, you know, at first he's like, we should find the Glitch Witch because she's the one who can fix this problem, and then kind of turns around later and says, I think actually, since you've been doing so good at bringing order to the networks, maybe we shouldn't go look for her. And Chewie is like, when I find her again, I want to ask her all these questions. And when you finally find her, the last thing that you say is, I'll listen to you. And it's when you don't have that, it's kind of an impossible burden, and you can see in this section in particular kind of what that does to her and how she reacts to it, and how kind of pulling you into this, either as as a person who finds her laptop, as the opening claims, or as an AI that she made, which you can make a good case for, like the part where you enter this network and your character doesn't seem to know what their name is. I'm the Beglitched. Wait, no, I'm the stranger. Wait, I'm Fish Sticker. Like, those are all names other people have given them. If they have a name they had before they came to this game, we don't know what it is, and they don't seem to either. But whether they're a person or an AI, you can see that this is kind of like her last ditch attempt was basically to leave the pieces for you to figure out, and hope that you'll put it together. And I guess really, when you really look into what your character does, what your journey is, the overarching theme, the overarching purpose of your character isn't really to fix the net. That's kind of a side effect. The entire arc of the game is basically you performing emotional labor for the Glitch Witch. You're doing things she can't handle. You're literally like listening to her thoughts in the form of the text messages. And the final act, the final thing that you do in the game is you offer to listen to her. And so that's kind of, I guess, the big thing is kind of a story of being the person who can kind of pull someone out of that just by being a person to them. And I think that's a really big and interesting theme. It's a really unique one. It's not the kind of thing that you actually really see in video games. Like, ultimately there is no final boss. There is no there really aren't villains. Like, there are bad guys. Like, some of the characters are jerks. Kern is the chicken's name. He's a fucking monster, but that's really kind of more incidental to what he's done, which is what all of the characters have done, which is to isolate, emotionally isolate her. And aside from him, like, I don't think you could argue that a lot of them aren't really terrible people, but they're just kind of caught up in their own business, in a lot of ways kind of petty, and a lot of little things can kind of build up to pushing someone into that space. And I guess the final boss, if you want to call it that, is just kind of the layers that she's built up around herself as a form of emotional armor against all of this, and like getting all that across in the form of a video game, like that's powerful and really rare. Like, this kind of emotional resonance that the game kind of gets across, kind of centering a character's emotional state in this way. And it's, you know, the fact that these are kind of presented as puzzles, these, this final area, kind of showing that, like, you do kind of have to work to push someone out of this. Like, it's not an easy thing to do. You have to, kind of really engage with the problem, and you have to think really carefully about what you're going to do. And, because if you kind of just go through it thoughtlessly, if you just kind of go through your usual routine and don't really stop and think about what you're doing for them, then you'll just kind of get pushed away, and that takes work, and sometimes someone is worth that effort. So this went on for a really long time, but I think that concludes my analysis. I'm sure there's stuff I missed, there's stuff I skimmed over. I didn't prepare a script or anything for this, but hopefully that's kind of some useful insights to kind of understanding what this story is really about. At least what I think it's about. So yeah, I'd say I'll see you next time, but I'm actually taking a bit of a break from videos. I should make a separate thing about that. But I guess I'll see you, whenever. So, bye-bye.